guys, just a super quick tour-related announcement. 1, if you are planning to attend, tickets are very limited, so be sure to snag yours while you still can. And 2, if you are attending and would like to submit a question to be read aloud in the in-person Jay vs. Ben Trivia Showdown, please submit your question in the link in the show notes or description. Questions can come from any of the original 7 books.
Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands and dust off your broomsticks and join us as we unlock the treasures behind Chamber of Secrets, Chapter 18, Dobby's Reward.
Man, we got big finale energy.
It's the last chapter.
Oh, man, it is very exciting. It is very exciting. It's a good chapter.
It is. It's a good chapter. I can't believe how fast we went through this book. I guess it's 18 weeks, but
I know. Yeah. It's definitely it's been unbelievable to see the cadence, because it feels like just yesterday we started this project, and here we are at the end of book 2.
At the end of book 2, granted, the books get significantly longer as we move forward.
I know. Yeah. I think like Order of the Phoenix will take us like 1 year.
Yeah, like we'll be doing it for a year. Okay, cool.
We're inside of this book for one hot minute, but that's okay, because so chapter 18. This is a fun chapter. We're going back to like basically out of the Chamber of Secrets. We're meeting. In my head, this scene always takes place, and possibly just because of the movie, in Dumbledore's office, but like throughout the whole chapter, it's just in McGonagall's office the whole time.
I think even in the movie, is it not in Dumbledore's office?
No, that's what I was saying. I think in the movie it is in Dumbledore's office.
No, I'm saying I don't even know. Is it?
Oh, I thought it was.
I don't know. I always feel like Dumbledore's desk looks a little bit different in the movie.
Huh.
Like he's sort of sitting off to the side a little or something.
Have to go back and fact check.
I guess we will.
Yeah.
Because then like when Lucius leaves, he doesn't go down the staircase, does he? He just sort of exits the room, and Harry's like, "Can I give this back to him?"
I don't know. I think I do remember Harry coming down like the rotating staircase.
Okay.
It seems ridiculous we don't know.
It does. It does.
We watch the movies in such a weird way, because it's so rare that I just sit down and like watch them start to finish these days. But I'm always interacting with them because we like pull video clips from them.
Yeah.
So it's like I watch in like 16-second like intervals as I'm going through, like trying to like find like each little piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess we can go. We can fact check that ourselves, but doesn't really matter. The other important thing about the fact that this is our final chapter of Chamber of Secrets is that, of course, we will be starting Prisoner of Azkaban on tour in person.
In person, it's going to be so much fun. Yeah, we're going to be like cracking into like a brand new book.
I know.
In Boston,
on stage.
So yeah, tickets are still available to at least Boston, New York City, and Philadelphia.
Yes.
One of them I think has like 2 tickets remaining.
Yeah. New York was like real close. So even maybe by the time you're hearing it might be sold out. But Boston and Philly, still some tickets left. So
some tickets.
Still chance if you want. Especially Boston, because that's chapter 1 of a new book.
I know, it's going to be so much fun.
But so the way it's going to time out is that after this episode, we will have our Dumbledore's Big Plan episode where we recap how Dumbledore's Big Plan affected Chamber of Secrets. And then we're also going to have an episode where it's just a Q&A. So we will just be answering your questions for an episode.
Yeah, which I'm so excited about, because a lot of the questions submitted inside of like each of the reviews that we do at the end of the episodes are
they're so good. They've been turned into like so many Super Carlin Brothers videos.
Yes, no, it's been really amazing. So if you guys have any deep burning questions, it doesn't have to be about Chamber of Secrets, just any of the Harry Potter saga altogether. We will have a Google Doc in the show notes for today's episode, and not next week's episode, but the week following. We'll be doing a full Q&A episode. It should be so much fun. I have a feeling that will be like jam-packed with new theory fodder and all sorts of just like good quality discussion. So be sure to check that out and send us all of your thoughts and questions.
Yes, please do. Looking forward to answering them for you. All right, Ben. So Dobby's Reward, the chapter art of this one features Dumbledore holding the Sword of Gryffindor.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's interesting to me that there is no inclusion of like any visible lettering on the blade.
You're right.
That may suggest that, but that it's, I think that's for good reason, because we, the reader, don't know yet that this is Gryffindor's own sword.
Right. All we know is that Harry pulled a sword out of a hat somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing I will say from the chapter art is that it looks as the book describes it, but the hilt of this sword has almost got like protuberances or something. Like
I guess those are like the rubies.
The rubies, yeah.
Yeah.
This seems like an incredibly uncomfortable sword to wield for any amount of time at all.
It does. It seems like it would be hard to hold and hold in your hand. What it makes me think of every time I see this chapter art is one of like my own personal theories about the Sword of Gryffindor, which is that like is it possible that it changes shape depending on who it appears to?
We've talked about this thought before, you and I have, and I do love that thought. Like because I think Gryffindor's whole thing with the sword is that like he was an amazing duelist with a wand, but out of like respect to muggles, if he was to be in a duel with a muggle, he would duel with the sword instead of a wand.
Instead of magic.
And I like to think that like Gryffindor, especially if the intention of the sword is to arrive to any Gryffindor in need, it's sort of like the sword then needs to be appropriate for any Gryffindor who then receives it.
Right.
Because, it's like if Colin Creevy as a first year went to pull the sword, it's like he might be like too little to successfully like wield it.
Yeah. And it's like this is just like kind of going off the movies and whatnot, but like the sword that appears to Harry in the movies just like it's like a small sword.
It is a small sword.
It doesn't seem like the kind of sword Godric Gryffindor, the full-grown adult man wizard, would carry around for dueling other muggles.
Yes. Yes. No, I agree. Yep. It's like how like it's perfect for Harry, the 12-year-old who's fighting the giant basilisk.
Yes.
But it's basically a small dagger to a full-grown adult.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it doesn't quite seem big enough, and then there's like discrepancy across this is obviously just different artists interpretation of the sword, but like it often appears different on like all the different cover artworks and stuff.
Right.
So it's like does the sword change shape? I think it does personally.
It's fascinating because even this depiction of it like almost comes across more like a pirate's sword to me.
Yeah.
Like if you can picture like a toy pirate, I feel like that's what this sword looks like.
It does look kind of like a pirate's sword.
I think it's great chapter art though. Excellent depiction of Dumbledore. I do think this is a premium Dumbledore chapter. There is like a kind of like information dump for one we get whenever we get like lengthy conversations with Dumbledore.
Yes.
Because like everything he says is always so impactful. It's so meaningful. It's like you're getting like more of the story. And again, like to go back to young readers coming into this whole thing, like at this point in time, like Harry's scar, why he survived, like these things
why he was targeted. These are all massive mysteries that still exist for you, the reader. Like sometimes it's hard for me to even remember that lens because we've just gone through the story so many times. So I'm always looking at it knowing all of the information that comes after. So it's like sometimes hard to remember like how badly and how tantalizing it must have been to be getting these morsels just like sort of spoon-fed to you by Dumbledore to like accelerate like what you, the reader, knows about the greater picture, like what's going to unfold. And even then, it still leaves you with a ton of mystery. But the other thing I love about Dumbledore inside of this chapter is Dumbledore has this great way of almost like utilizing his kindness and politeness in a way that like I think leaves him very in charge of like so many of the rooms he's in, but he's not doing it by being like bold and loud and like big. Yeah.
And he does it like all throughout the chapter, and it's one of the things that I love the most about like book Dumbledore. And I think it's probably like where if I ever had any like critiques of like the Dumbledore that we end up seeing in the movies, like there's the very famous scene like did you put your name in the goblet of fire? We've all complained about it at this point in time, but like it's like I think in this chapter it literally says said Dumbledore calmly, which is the same text that is used to describe
how he asked that question.
Did you put your name in the goblet of fire, Harry? It's like it's just so different. But it's like one of the things that I love about Dumbledore. It's like I think if I were ever to imagine myself as like a powerful leader, it's like a trait that I would love to carry with me.
Right, like your politeness commands the room.
Exactly.
It's like you don't see it very often.
No, but it's a great way to set the tone for that like level of authority. So anyway, I like that. But without any further ado, we can go ahead and dive on in.
Yeah, all right. So let's see. Where are we? We have Harry, Ron, and Ginny. They're covered in muck and slime and blood in Harry's case. And there's a scream. So Mrs. Weasley is there, which this is like, it's like a very tiny thing, but like, it almost certainly it's almost like telling, they don't say exactly how Mr. and Mrs. Weasley got there, but since Ginny has been taken and they have gotten her out, there has not been enough time for like the Hogwarts Express to have run. So like they must have used floo powder or something.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we will learn in Order of the Phoenix that like Umbridge's, well, really even the Gryffindor common room, Sirius is able to sort of do like the face.
That to me, yes, that Sirius can communicate with Harry in the Gryffindor common room is bananas to me, but based on the rest of the security around the school, because he's just going to random wizards' houses, sticking his head in the fire, and successfully getting in. And they're like, how could Sirius Black be getting into the castle? We can't figure it out.
It's like through floo powder.
Through the floo powder, guys. Come on. It's like it's open to literally anyone.
It's very strange. It is very strange. Yeah. It's like what is preventing anybody from like in that situation? Could Sirius have? I mean, he does the face thing, but like, could he have just thrown the floo powder in and been like Gryffindor common room and like been just sitting there?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because I don't like the way they depicted it in the movies where he just like face sort of appears like in the coals.
Right.
Like, that is never how I like in the book. It's more like you put your head in, your head is physically there.
Right.
It's not like projecting a picture of your head. Like your physical head is there.
Could you imagine how awkwardly you would have to be positioning yourself in the fire in order for your head to be like floating in the way that would like make sense? You'd almost have to like sit like on your butt and like lean backwards into the fire, because if you like leaned forwards into the fire and your head showed up, it almost seems like your head would be like facing down into the coals.
It does seem like that. Although I think when Harry does it in Umbridge's office, he's like he describes like how pain in his knees are. So he's like on his knees doing it.
Right. Yeah. It's a very weird like metaphysical thing to like, try to figure out like, is his head physically gone, or is it just sort of like a telephone call, like it's a signal?
I think it's physically gone. I think if you looked at Harry in that moment, it would look like his head wasn't there.
Oh, man.
Right?
Really, really odd.
Very weird.
Yeah,
Very odd thought. But yeah, like also, if that's true, it also doesn't make sense in Prisoner. Like, Sirius goes to all this trouble of having Crookshanks steal the passwords from Neville, then breaking into the castle and going up to the common room and using the password. Like, why don't you just use the floo powder this time?
Right.
I don't get it.
Maybe this is just like one of those things where like as security is tightened, it's sort of like, okay, now we gotta like close down the flute network.
But in Goblet of Fire, as far as they're concerned, Sirius Black, convicted murderer, is still on the loose.
Okay, maybe then that this is something we need to throw into like a Dumbledore's big plan type of situation, where it's like Dumbledore has almost enabled the fireplace to be available for Sirius so that he can talk to Harry.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because he is talking to Sirius at that point.
He is.
Yeah, okay, I do like that.
Oh, he even says in that book, like, you're not the only one communicating with...
Yeah, with Sirius.
Oh,
so I could even see a Dumbledore like secretly opens the
like a valve or something.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just got like a little like, oh, Gryffindor's open. What do you know?
Oh, no.
That honestly makes a lot more sense, because it's like otherwise anyone could just come into the Gryffindor common room at any time.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that makes way more sense, dude. Good find.
Thanks.
Good find. That was amazing. I've been that was like a little thorn in the back of my brain for like ever. And she's like, oh my God, it's gone. That makes so much more sense.
Such relief.
Wow,
well,
we solved it.
I know. There we go. I'm so glad. But anyway, so we're here.
We're one sentence into the chapter.
We're talking about like Goblet of Fire chapter 17 while we're literally staring at chapter 18, the finale of Chamber of Secrets. So,
okay. They get there probably by floo powder.
Yes.
Let's see which. They're immediately just like, you saved her. How'd you do it? Amazing. You're so cool, Harry. Wow. Thanks for saving all of our kids all the time. Then they make Harry retell everything, and it's kind of funny to me, like when Harry retells everything you're going through this this one paragraph, and Harry just sort of describes the whole book in like 5 sentences.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, then we did this, then that, then this, then that, then this. It's like sometimes you and I will have to like write a video. We'll write a video for YouTube, and it'll be like 5 pages long, and then it'll be like, okay, can we repackage this and put it on like TikTok or Instagram or something?
Right.
And we have to make it a lot shorter, and it's like, how can could we write this 15-minute video into 1 minute? You know,
it's there's an art form to speaking concisely, and I don't possess it.
Oh.
I'm like the wordiest person you've ever met. If you used Grammarly on anything I wrote ever, it's like you could say this with fewer words, and it's like, yeah, but I like all the words.
But I like the words.
I'm like a word hoarder, you know. It's like, but I want them in my pile over here.
The more words I put in, the more I can narrow down my exact, particular, definite meaning, and then people can't argue with me about the vagueness of my statements.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually not what I'm intentionally doing, but you're not wrong that probably is a byproduct of it.
It is interesting that it's not what you're doing, because that I do feel like I often think that's why you're doing it.
No, I'm trying to
you're like I'm not leaving any margin of interpretation available to you, the audience, to assume what I said was offensive to anyone in any way, because I have stated it so particularly that you know exactly my intended meaning.
Oh, maybe that is more intentional. Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant more like, haha, no, you can't say that. Oh, but anyway, we're on like a completely different discussion here. But no, I do think it's like, okay, like, no, I want to make sure that this is like covering like all my bases.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I think yeah, certainly some intent there. But anyway, Harry's really good at it, and I'm really not good at it.
Yeah, he just sums it up real quick. Let's see. I love how Professor McGonagall responds to. She's like, very well. So you found out where the entrance was, breaking 100 school rules into pieces along the way. Like, yeah, that's what's important right now.
I highlighted that exact same sentence because I was like, I think this reflects the relationship between McGonagall and Hermione in such a big way, which is also kind of interesting because I feel like Dumbledore and McGonagall have a very similar relationship to Harry and Hermione, like where like, you know, they're like both, you know, like they can rely on one another for things. But like Hermione sort of has that famous line from Sorcerer's Stone, which is like you know, you're going to get us all killed, or worse, expelled.
Well, that sentiment comes up one paragraph later.
Okay.
Honestly, where they like Harry's like, oh, he manages to tell the whole story without talking about the diary. But then he's like, what about Ginny? What if they expelled her? And it's like, dude, is that what you're worried about right now? Someone was almost just murdered and you fought a basilisk. And you're like, what if they expelled Ginny?
Jay, once again, it's the Dursleys. It's you don't like expulsion at this stage in Harry's like childhood. He's too young to be able to just go out and like live on his own,
right?
And so it's like you gotta get that constant reminder of like what worst case scenario is.
I know, but it's like this is that. Imagine that, like he just fought a basilisk, and it's like to Harry, living with the Dursleys is a fate worse than death. Like I would rather the basilisk just win that fight, you know. Just like if it's this is really where I get most of my courage from.
I really this is something I want to be curious about because I made such a big deal out of it for the first 2 books, and I think I'm going to finally be able to stop talking about it after all this time. But I feel like the conversation about expulsion is going to start narrowing down.
Yeah,
it's less of like a constant worry for Harry, but
which is
at this stage it is.
It's funny that it's like such a concern of his as a first and second year when he's like sort of lightly breaking rules and like no one's actually like trying to expel him, but by order of the Phoenix, like Umbridge is there and she is looking for any opportunity at all to expel Harry from Hogwarts and get him in trouble, and she can't do it. It's like this kid breaks rules left and right, and you are going out of your way, making new rules to put in front of him to trip over, and he still can't do it.
I know.
Yeah.
What's so interesting to me about this conversation as well, though, is again going back to like young version of me reading the books for the first time. Like, I don't know that there's like a greater picture. I'm not thinking about the fact that there's like a publishing house that realizes that this is going to be like making tons and tons and tons of money. The more volumes of it that come out, the more installments or whatever. In my head, as a small child, there is just a world where he gets expelled and that just means the series is over.
Yeah.
You know, so like that anxiety like was in me reading the books where I was like, no, like if he gets expelled, then it's over and I can't have it be over because I want more.
As
like,
if the writer's not in control.
As if the writer is not in control. And it's like at some point in time, it's like, unfortunately, he gets expelled and there's nothing we can do about it.
Sort of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we've had that happen to us on some what ifs where it's like you go through like the entire scenario and you're like, actually, if this happens, that might just be it. Voldemort might win.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun of the what if.
Right.
Is that we're not trying to steer the story anyway. We're just discovering what would happen. And it's like if we write ourselves into a corner, it's sort of like, well, if we find ourselves in a corner, it's like, well, I guess that's kind of it.
Right, yeah. I'm not going to break the rules to get out of here. So it's like, unfortunately, that's it. Voldemort wins.
Voldemort wins. It rarely happens, though. Almost always. I think it's only happened one time that we've actually had Voldemort win.
I know, and I can't think of which.
I can't either. Yeah.
And in case you only know us from Through the Gryffindor, the podcast over on our YouTube channel, Super Carlin Brothers, we do a lot of like what if deep dives that can be like hours long.
Yeah.
Where we go super in depth, like, what if Harry was in Slytherin? And it's sort of like we almost go like scene by scene throughout the entire series to outline it. Talk about a 5-page script. That was like a 200-page script.
It was like a 200-page script, and I think it almost killed me. I mean, there were so many. I'd be up until like 3 a.m. writing. I was like, we got to get this done. We got to put it out by Friday. I got to read this whole book again in a week, and
right,
and then rewrite it. Yeah.
Yes. Good times. Good times.
It was, honestly, it was. It's my favorite thing we've ever made, for sure.
It is really good. But anyway, expulsion, constant worry for years 1 and 2.
Yes. Dumbledore has a nice little revelation afterwards. Obviously, Ginny's not going to be expelled. But he says, what interests me most, said Dumbledore, is how Lord Voldemort managed to enchant Ginny when my sources tell me he's currently hiding in the forests of Albania. Like, number 1, who are your sources? And number 2, if you know where he is, what are you doing, bro?
Oh, why not?
Why aren't you going out there?
This is like a big one, especially with Dumbledore and Voldemort. I mean, maybe it's just because Dumbledore knows the prophecy, and so it's like it can't be me.
Well, you know what? I have issue with that because
you got beef.
I got beef with that because, like, when Dumbledore is talking to Harry and telling him, and Harry's like, there's a prophecy. This is so, like, I have to do it. And he's like, no, you don't have to do it because the prophecy says it. Like, the prophecy only matters because Voldemort put stock in the prophecy. And it's like, Dumbledore doesn't have to put stock in the prophecy. That's like basically what he's telling Harry.
But his whole plan revolves around putting stock in the prophecy.
Yeah.
So does Dumbledore put stock in the prophecy?
I mean, it seems like he must, because otherwise it sounds like he knows generally where he is.
Right. Well, and what's also interesting about this particular situation is that Harry is currently in the process of physically handing Dumbledore the first ever proof that Tom Riddle, Voldemort created horcruxes.
Right.
And so at this point in time, it is entirely possible that Dumbledore is like himself flummoxed as to how Voldemort has continued to stay alive,
right,
despite all of this. So it's even possible that, like, when Dumbledore sees the destroyed object of the diary, he's like, my sources tell me he's in Albania, but there's a chance that, like, Dumbledore in this moment is like, Voldemort might be dead right now.
Well, but he even in this scene will tell Harry he thinks that there's a bit of Voldemort in him.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So maybe that theory is being formed.
I suppose. Because the prophecy does include the line, neither can live while the other survives, or one must die at the hands of the other because neither can live while the other survives.
Right.
So, and he already knows Harry can talk to snakes because of zoo-related incidents and stuff. So he could sort of already suspect that the bit of soul is inside of Harry, and that Harry is effectively acting as a horcrux, even though he wouldn't have been an intentional horcrux.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
In which case, he does need Voldemort to destroy the piece inside of Harry.
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So the big thing that relays back to that is jumping forward to Goblet of Fire, which apparently we're going to have a lot of fun with.
I know, right?
When we get there.
When are we a goblet?
there is a moment when Harry tells, after the graveyard of Little Hangleton, where Dumbledore... or where Harry explains to Dumbledore that he used Harry's own blood to return, and Dumbledore has the gleam of triumph in his eyes. That gleam of triumph is, I mean, I'm sure we'll spend an hour just talking about that.
I'm sure we're gonna.
Yeah, that little fragment of sentence there, because that gleam of triumph is the moment that Dumbledore learns Harry gets to live, or that he has a chance of living.
Yeah,
because up until then, he is raising him like a pig for slaughter.
It is. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's like one of the most important sentences in the entire series.
Yes.
Yeah. We're like, it's a little bit of foreshadowing too, that it's so easy to skate past, but it's like, what was the gleam of triumph? What did that mean? It's like, you're not going to know for 3 more books.
I know.
And by then you're going to have forgotten about the gleam of triumph. And only after you've reread it again and really paid attention will you be like, oh, I see.
The single most important line.
There it was.
There you go.
That's
a video we can make.
Yeah.
The single most important sentence in all of Harry Potter.
Oh man, That's not bad. That's not bad. Write
Keep
that
an eye,
down.
yeah, keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, as we continue forward, there's
so much horcrux set up happening in this chapter that I don't feel like I fully appreciated.
I know. I keep going back to this because I've said this before, but I've been so skeptical forever and ever and ever that the diary was meant to be a horcrux from the beginning, and it's because it behaves so weirdly compared to all of the rest of them. But you're not wrong. I mean, it's like, Harry basically says it was this diary, said Harry quickly, picking it up and showing it to Dumbledore. Riddle wrote it when he was 16. And Dumbledore's reaction is even kind of fascinating because it comes across as oddly positive, but Dumbledore says, "Brilliant," he said softly. Of course, he was the most brilliant student Hogwarts had ever seen. So it's like his reaction here, like even the way he says brilliant, like if you're reading this, it's like, brilliant? What do you mean brilliant? Like evil.
Evil.
Terrible, dark.
Terrible.
Like,
but great.
I know, yeah. The Ollivander line. But it's like brilliant seems like an oddly strange word choice. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Like it's like brilliant. What do you mean brilliant?
Brilliant, he said softly.
Yeah.
And it's like he says it softly. He's not like curious. It's like he sort of immediately gets it.
Right. Yeah. Like the pieces are like falling into place.
Yeah, like he hasn't thought about it for too long yet. And then a little bit later down the page, he says, when he's telling them about Tom Riddle, traveled far and wide, sank so deeply into the dark arts, consorted with the very worst of our kind, underwent so many dangerous magical transformations that when he resurfaced as Lord Voldemort, he was barely recognizable. So the important part there is the dangerous magical transformations, all of which occur at all because he's making the Horcruxes. Like that's what makes him look so much like weirder and darker and like grosser and stuff. So even that is like an allusion to the Horcruxes. Like maybe at this point, Dumbledore hasn't fully understood like why Voldemort's appearance changed, but like that is what is the cause of it.
Yes, yeah. And it's interesting as well because the way that like Dumbledore takes in information, it's like I think he's very hesitant to work with information that he doesn't know for sure, which could line up very nicely with like the sentence he says like in King's Cross Station and Deathly Hallows, where he's like, but my guesses are usually good. It's because my guesses are usually based on like very hard learned facts. But even Dumbledore's obsession with Slughorn's memory over like the 7 Horcruxes before really truly like letting Harry move forward, it's like, he made more than one.
Right.
It's helpful for storytelling purposes to know what the outside limit is at 7, but otherwise it's like just start hunting them.
Right.
Which
I guess he has.
Which I guess he has. Yeah. But he's like it's very important to him to know exactly how many.
Right, like how long will I be hunting? To what end are we? Yeah.
Which is an important piece of information, but it's always one of those things where I'm like, was Slughorn's memory that important? Because the really big thing that we learn is just that there's 7.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's helpful, but just destroy them, just go on the attack.
I guess because otherwise you could never know when it was time to attack Voldemort Prime.
I guess that's a good point.
At some point you just have to be like, well, hope we got them all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Maybe I should just give the line more credit.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so then as we move forward, Ginny starts to explain, that the diary that she's been writing in it, and it's been writing back all year. Mr. Weasley has sort of like an interesting reaction to this, and we know that like Mr. Weasley works in the misuse for Muggle artifacts department, so I guess it makes sense. But he specifically says, "What have I always told you? Never trust anything that can think for itself if you can't see where it keeps its brain." I'm like, that's like, I'm surprised that this is something that Arthur is already teaching his kids as of Ginny being an 11-year-old.
Yeah, it is interesting. He also says it was clearly full of dark magic. I was like, yeah, geez, Ginny, come on.
I know.
So clear.
It's like, why? Come on. Yeah. Can't you have more life scope at this point in your life?
I know. But it's also interesting coming from Arthur. Is this, never trust anything that can think for itself if you can't see where it keeps its brain. Because like the flying forward Anglia sort of can think for itself. And I don't really know where it's keeping its brain,
The engine, Jay, clearly.
Well, is that where you think? Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. But it's like,
I think cars actually have like CPUs or something, some type of like computer chip that's technically their brain. Although I doubt the Ford Anglia.
Yeah, I doubt the Ford Anglia had much computer chip action happening in it.
Probably not.
Not as much used to be a Thestral action as it had.
Yeah, I know. I still like that thought because something about. I mean, maybe that even is something to like spend more time on specifically because something that Mr. Weasley did to the car allowed it to come alive, and it's literally something we're introduced to in this book, and it comes to life of its own in this book. And here he is warning Ginny about this exact thing. It's like, did he use dark magic somehow?
Flying Ford Anglia is a horcrux.
You can't kill Arthur Weasley.
You can't kill Arthur Weasley.
Dude, he put his heart and soul into that thing.
Oh my God. He literally put his soul into it. Literally, yeah. Who did he kill?
Oh man, but maybe that's the difference. Maybe you can have something come to life if you put. It has to be both your heart and soul, because the heart would provide a kindness, versus just your soul, which is then otherwise like darker.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I like the idea that like he worked on it so hard that he put his heart and soul into it, because it also does like seem to like instinctively protect Ron.
It does. Yeah.
So there's a kind of that, I guess, going for it. That'd be like a different way for something to come to life, but it kind of still makes sense, because like the Horcruxes are sort of like alive a little bit, and it's like the car is alive. I'm like, how is the car coming alive? Like if it has like a little bit of Mr. Weasley's soul in there, but like in a good way.
In a good way.
But like not in a bad way, in a good way.
Not in a bad way.
Not an I murdered somebody way.
Right.
And I worked really hard on it kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Precisely. I mean, we know that wands, like the wizard learns from the wand, and the wand learns from the wizard. So that's a similar one where like your magic grows and your relationship with your wand grows in turn. So
yeah, that's true. And the Harry talks about like the broomsticks feeling like he compares them to horses, like maybe they could tell when you're afraid or whatever.
Right.
And it's like broomsticks can fly and the car can fly.
Yeah.
Although you know what, even the broomsticks as horses, it's kind of like, you know what, there are flying horses though in Harry Potter.
That's a good point.
And they're called Thestrals, and they can turn invisible like the car.
If this was the case, though, in order to put life into things, and it does require what we're saying here is the heart and soul to be put into it, it would basically mean that the only people who could make flying broomsticks are people who are deeply passionate about their craft.
Well, that's true.
And it seems like the firebolt is made rather meticulously.
Yeah.
It's like hand
twig
selected.
by twig.
Yeah, exactly.
Aerodynamic, except in the movie where it looks like not the opposite of that.
There is a real issue with the design of the firebolt in the movie, where they had already designed the Nimbus, and for some reason they were like, okay, well, too bad. We already made one that looks super sleek, so we have to do the opposite of that. It doesn't seem like
the Nimbus just looks so much faster than the Firebolt.
It just simply does.
And Ben, I don't know if I've said it before, but the footrests on broomsticks, I think are the dumbest thing ever.
No, I know.
I mean, I hate them. It's so dumb.
I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah. Especially the Nimbus didn't have them.
Nope.
You know what though? You know, like how when you learn to ride your bike without training wheels, and then you get older and you're like, that was dumb. Let me put training wheels. Now I can't fall.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. That's what it's like. There are all these professional Quidditch players out there flying around training wheels on the brooms.
I wonder if the real issue was that when they were filming it, they were like, it's really hard to sit on like a narrow piece of wood. We got to give him something. And it's going to be hard to like rotoscope green screen out the little stirrups. And so like, maybe just make it a part of it.
I mean, that could be an explanation, but also in Philosopher's Stone and in Chamber of Secrets, like it looks pretty fine. Looks fine to me.
Okay.
I don't know. There's no excuses. Play like a champion. Take off the training wheels in the remakes and make the firebolt look fast.
There you go.
That's all.
There you go. Okay. All right. Yeah. Good thoughts. From here, though, Dumbledore does dismiss Ginny and the Weasleys up to the hospital wing. And this is, I think, a really cool setup for Prisoner of Azkaban. But he says, bed rest and perhaps a large steaming mug of hot chocolate. I always find that cheers me up.
And yes. I highlighted that too. I said Dementor setup.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's so good because this is like one of those things that like I think gives Lupin a lot of credit. Like immediately is the Dementors in Prisoner show up on the train, and Lupin immediately knows how to like handle the situation. He's like, here, take the chocolate. It helps.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then like Harry takes the chocolate and he's like, to his surprise, it was helping.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, there is something, and I love this too, because this is another one of those like quirky little things about like the wizarding world where something as like joyous as chocolate is, it's like we all love chocolate, right? Out here in the real world.
It's just like Dumbledore has like a real like like understanding of like the joy that candy is supposed to bring you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like he never lets go of what candy is supposed to do. But it's like it's almost because he recognizes like the actual glorious purpose that candy has, which is not just like a fun, delicious treat, but like it is functionally making you happier.
Right.
Which then makes you better.
Right.
You know, because happiness leads to love, and love is the most powerful form of magic.
There you go. Go candy. Go candy.
That's the reason.
Yeah. Yes. I also like his defense of Ginny when he says older and wiser wizards than she have been hoodwinked by Lord Voldemort. It's like excellent point. Just excellent point.
Yes.
You know?
I like that too because it's almost a little bit in contrast to Mr. Weasley saying like it was clearly full of dark magic. Dumbledore's more like, okay, this is like one of the most dangerous wizards who ever lived. Like, let's give her a pass.
Yeah. Let's give her a little bit of a pass there. He's extremely manipulative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like the primary way he rose to power.
Yeah. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about that, Ginny. You're not dumb for not realizing it was clearly full of dark magic.
Right.
Yeah.
But so then so we get the Mrs. Weasley and Ginny out of the room, and I think then McGonagall is sent off to have a feast, which is another one of those where I feel like Dumbledore's like reading the room rather well. Like, you know what people like? Fun.
Feasts.
Food. If they're going to come down in their pajamas is unexpected. Nobody's like anticipating this. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to hand out 400 points to 2 students.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
I like to think at this point Slytherin's winning by like 399 points or something too, you know.
Yeah, almost.
And Dumbledore's like, you each get 200 points. Yeah, 200 points.
Yeah, that's a quick back of the napkin math.
Oh my God, look at that. Oh, sorry, Slytherin. Well done. Gryffindor wins again.
Yes.
What do you know?
Slytherin's just like, come on.
Like, are you kidding me, bro?
We worked so hard for this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then McGonagall has to leave the room where Dumbledore is left to deal with Ron and Harry. And this is a little bit ominous, but really the big thing here is I think it's kind of like you need to like get everybody out of the room so Dumbledore and Harry can have this conversation. But it's interesting to me the way that like it's like Dumbledore's almost having to like give reasons for everybody to be like, okay, you two, now you two can leave. You two, now you two can leave. McGonagall, feast. Like, it's almost like one by one. Everybody leave. I gotta talk to Harry.
Yeah. Got to talk to him. Important things to say. I have some sort of vaguisms I want to pass out that are a little clearer, but not much.
Not much, yeah.
Yep. Let's see. What do we got here? Dumbledore admits that sometimes even the best of us must eat our own words, which I love that just sentiment that he's like just not afraid to be wrong.
Yeah, which specifically what he's wrong about is like, I seem to remember telling you both that I would have to expel you if you broke any more school rules. And it's like one of those where it's like, yeah, gonna have to go back on that because clearly you broke the rules for good reasons.
Yep, exactly.
Well done.
For the greater good, you might say.
What do you think about? Yeah, there you go. something you used to believe in. What do you think about the sentiment? Like you will both receive special awards for services to the school, which is kind of fascinating because it's like part of like what led them down their pathway was the award for special services to the school that was like given to Tom Riddle
for the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. So maybe they'll display Harry's and Ron's more prominently.
I suspect they get rid of Tom Riddle's after this.
Yeah, probably so. So. Do you feel like Ron at this point? I mean, this is like a pretty big accolade. Like you'd start to think that these two really would be gaining like considerable popularity.
I mean, yes, I think you're right, and I think for the most part that's true. Like Harry, like. Sometimes he's in his own head a lot about it, but like Harry's a very popular person.
That's true. You know? That's true. He's got like a little bit of like imposter syndrome. It's like he can't quite understand why everybody likes him, but they do.
And it's like, oh yeah, you're the star player of the Quidditch team, and you stopped Voldemort. And
twice.
Yeah, twice.
Hey, won the House Cup twice.
Yeah, won the House Cup twice, and you were the school champion, and you know the prettiest girl at Ravenclaw likes you, and it's like Harry's very popular. He just has imposter syndrome about it. Yeah,
maybe this is like one of those things where like I even always think like Lavender Brown liking Ron. I'm always like, well, that one came out of left field a little bit, but like maybe not so much. Like maybe that's like one of those where it's like, yeah, it's like no, people are absolutely taking notice of Ron as well.
I mean, it's definitely Harry's best friend. Obviously, Harry asked Parvati to the Yule Ball, so I can't really ask Harry. But Ron, hey man, what's up?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So there we go. Then we finally get a little bit of like a turn over to Lockhart, where he has said nothing for the whole chapter, and Dumbledore says, "But one of us seems to be keeping muddily quiet about his part in this dangerous adventure." Dumbledore added, "Why so modest, Gilderoy?"
I know, I like that too. Why so modest? It's like this is a great example of Dumbledore being so polite. Like, why so modest? It's like, because what he's really saying is, you're never modest.
You're never modest. I know, yeah. But like, what's really kind of funny is that like Dumbledore. This is the point where like you must be aware of the fact that Dumbledore knows that Lockhart is a fraud.
I mean, he says, "Impaled upon your own sword, Gilderoy."
I know.
It's
yes.
like, so he knew.
Yeah, so he knew. It's like why did you hire him?
Right. Because Dumbledore's big plan.
Because Dumbledore's big plan. Yeah. Exactly. What I love about this, though, is that Lockhart responds, "Sword," said Lockhart dimly. "Haven't got a sword. That boy has one, though. He'll lend you one."
Yeah. It's like such like a clunky little like transition into talking about the sword.
I know. Yes. I especially because I feel like what is the phrase that we learned once upon a time? Like hoisted upon your own petard.
Hoisted upon your own petard. Yes.
Yeah. Petard, not petard.
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 Yes.
Yeah. Since everybody knows what a petard is.
Yeah. It's like an explosive, isn't it?
Is it?
I thought maybe.
I don't know. I always thought of it as like a pole arm of some kind.
I'm gonna look it up because I remember having this problem. Whenever I heard "hoisted by your own petard," I always thought it was like like by your own underpants or something.
Oh,
like
a wedgie.
Yeah, like a wedgie, but like accidentally it happened to yourself. Let's see. We're gonna look up petard.
What do we got for it?
We'll just come up with a bunch of places. Okay. Hoisted with his own petard is a phrase from a speech in William Shakespeare's play Hamlet that has become proverbial. The phrase's meaning is that a bomb maker is blown off the ground by his own bomb.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at you go.
There you go.
You were completely right.
Nailed
I was completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Point J.
Yep.
The point is, though, is that I actually do feel like this little like play on words is using that phrase, but was designed to allow for the segue that then ensues, because basically that does bring the attention back to the Sword of Gryffindor, where Dumbledore has now dismissed Ron from the room. Where he's like, "Can you take Lockhart away now? I'd like a few more words with Harry." And now is kind of like one of the critical moments for Harry inside of the year, because we're going to learn a myriad of different things. But one of the things that Harry's been struggling with in it, like, kind of hailing back to that imposter syndrome, is that he has been concerned that the Sorting Hat was right. And like his ability to talk to snakes and his like relationship to like Salazar Slytherin, Tom Riddle, Voldemort, like all the rest, it's starting to kind of like not look so good for Harry. And I do love this, because it's like one of those situations like where he's kind of like, the thing is, you don't know that the hat thought me good for Slytherin. But like, I love Dumbledore's like reaction to it, where it's like, "No, but why did it put you in Gryffindor?" "Because I asked it to." And Dumbledore's like, exactly.
See, even the way Dumbledore phrases that, I feel like Dumbledore put the hat on and was like, "Tell me about that Potter kid." Like, it seems like, yeah, no, but Harry, why did it put you in Gryffindor? Right? Because like he already knows why.
He already knows why.
Right. How does he know? Because
he's clearly talking to the hat all day.
Because he's talking to that hat, man.
Yeah. I love to imagine Dumbledore sitting up in his office wearing the Sorting Hat, having conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, now tell me about Harry. What about him? Yes. Oh, Slytherin, you say. All right. And why didn't you put him there? Oh, very good. Good to know. All right. That'll probably come up in 2 years or something, maybe. Yeah. I'm curious. Like, if I honestly, I do think he talks to the hat. I think he asked it about Harry, because he seems to know the answer ahead of time.
Yeah, like that's the thing, is that Dumbledore has like a very like omniscient like ability, to the point where it like seems to break the bounds of what's reasonable.
Yeah.
Like the private conversation that Harry had inside of his head with the Sorting Hat feels like not the kind of thing that anybody else would be able to access, and yet Dumbledore seems to know.
It does seem to know, yeah, or else he's like, always doing his piercing blue eyes. Or it's like, are you just reading his mind about the Sorting Hat or something?
Could be that. Could use legilimate on the hat.
Well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Like, what are you thinking, Hat? What are you thinking?
What do you think about that?
Why are you still thinking about Harry? It's been 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, Harry's able to put the hat back on again and like have a conversation with it.
That's true.
That's true. Dumbledore's in his office the whole year.
Right. No, I think you're right. I think that, especially if it's got like the intelligence of the four founders, baked inside of it. There's
Yeah.
probably just a lot to be learned
Yeah.
from the hat. Like it's used in a rather like ceremonial capacity.
Yeah.
But it does seem like the magical capabilities of the sorting hat would be rather extraordinary.
It does. It does.
Should be like, like if your brain is like Wikipedia of all of your experiences and you put that inside and there are 3 others of those and they're from the 3 other smartest wizards who have ever existed, like, there's a lot going on inside of the hat.
Yeah, you can learn a lot from that hat.
Yeah.
Gotta be. So Harry starts talking to Dumbledore about his experience with Tom Riddle. He says, Professor Dumbledore, Riddle said I'm like him. Strange likenesses. Dumbledore has like an odd reaction. He's like, did he now? Said Dumbledore. Which I think is like what is, I wonder what, I don't know like how to read that sentence. Like, did he now? Tom Riddle said you were like him. Did he? That's interesting. Like he finds that part of it unusual.
Yeah, I guess that is a good question. It's like there's the possibility, like you can learn that like a lot of the Death Eaters following Voldemort's downfall believe that Harry could be like the second coming of the Dark Lord, and so like in that situation, it's almost like, was there a moment where, or could Dumbledore have predicted the potential for a moment where Voldemort might try to like sway Harry to the dark side, so to speak?
Yeah.
Like sort of like, hey, me and you, we're kind of similar. Kind of talk to snakes, sort of look the same, grew up as orphans. Like, we have these things in common. What do you think, Harry? And I mean, so yeah, Dumbledore could be surprised by the question. But I also then think his like follow up is sort of like, it's almost like a test of character, from Harry, because it's like, as Dumbledore himself just said, Tom Riddle is one of the most brilliant students to have ever come through Hogwarts school. So for Harry to be in likeness to someone like that, you might be like, well, what do you think about that? Like, it's like, you're doing some pretty big things over here. Do you think yourself brilliant? Like by asking that question, Dumbledore does stand to learn a lot from Harry, and Harry's immediate reaction is, I don't think I'm like him at all.
Yeah.
Like, Harry, I mean, he's very like, it even said Harry more loudly than he intended. I mean, I'm in Gryffindor. So that's like where the imposter syndrome sneaks back in a little bit. But like, I think that like it's a really good knee-jerk reaction. It's very authentic from Harry. Like, no, I'm not like him at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Despite the actual similarities. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, that's the thing. It's like, they could be very similar.
They could be, but like Harry's going down the complete opposite path.
Yeah. Then Dumbledore reveals that, or why Harry can speak Parcel Tongue is because Voldemort is the last remaining descendant of Salazar Slytherin and unless I'm much mistaken, he transferred some of his own powers to you the night he gave you that scar, which is like almost a weird way. Like they don't normally talk about like their powers or something like it's a superpower. Like he transferred some of his, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like the way that is phrased is a little bit different to how they usually talk about magic. But, like, what he ultimately really means here is that he, like, obviously that he, like, a bit of Voldemort's soul went into him. And I feel like Dumbledore is just trying to phrase it in a way that is not like, yes, you have Voldemort living inside of you, 12-year-old boy.
Right. Yeah. And that's like the big area where it's like, what really led us down Dumbledore's big plan in the first place is sort of that conversation that always felt so frustrating for the longest time was like, why does Dumbledore not just tell Harry everything from the start? And like, you can sort of understand the world where it's like a 12-year-old is not ready for this kind of responsibility. A 12-year-old does not need to know that a piece of Voldemort is living in him currently.
Right. It's like if I tell him that it's like that's what's giving you the powers. But if I just tell you he gave you some of his powers, it just sounds like he made me more powerful. Cool.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, you got to imagine the level of like patience even involved with Dumbledore in these moments to like almost to like not be giving him all of the information would be very challenging because like you're sitting there and it's like even as Dumbledore, it's like inside of this very conversation, you're getting more pieces of the puzzle that are teaching you a lot about like what Tom Riddle and Voldemort have done inside of their process. It's like, for me, I would just be like exploding with like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like I would want to be like, I'd be wanting to say it all out loud.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's having to like be very reserved here and like, kind of like be like, let me say things carefully. I don't want to spook the kid.
Right. Yes, he is good. Harry has a weird jump in logic where he says, Voldemort put a bit of himself in me. And Dumbledore's like, certainly seems so. And he's like, so I should be in Slytherin. I'm like, I don't know if that made sense, Harry. Like, how did you get there? from that math. But obviously that's not true. And then we finally get you. Then he finally says, "Yeah, why didn't he put you in Slytherin?" He says, "Put you in Gryffindor. Listen to me." Yeah, whatever. Tells him that it's your choices that are more important than. Oh my gosh, that are more important than our abilities. That's it.
Well, yeah, one of the most such an important sentence. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities.
Yeah. Okay. Much better.
Who did it better?
Absolutely. I was trying to find it on the page. I was like, why can't I find it?
I know there is a small skill involved that I think we're slowly getting better at as we do this podcast, which is like being mid-sentence, deep in thought, and then trying to find your resource on the page in front of you and being like, and then, hang on one second.
Yeah, where is it? Where is it? Although, because what happened is I highlighted a bunch of stuff when Dumbledore is saying the ways in which Harry is similar to a Slytherin student, which he says that you are resourceful, you have determination, and a certain disregard for the rules, which I think plays into the whole idea that each Harry, Ron, and Hermione their abilities represent the other three houses, but their choices represent Gryffindor.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's really like the key thing that's kind of going on there. But like even that in that tone, it's like they're not necessarily supposed. Well, maybe in some way they are supposed to represent the other houses, but it's like the like tying of all those ideals together is more of like a unifying force than it is like trying to be like, yeah, because Gryffindors are the best.
Yeah,
it's like no, when you put all the ingredients together, what you get is something great.
Exactly, because it's not saying that Gryffindor is the best. It's saying that between the three of them, all four houses are present.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's why they're always like so successful.
Right.
Let's see. And then Dumbledore finally reveals that the sword says Godric Gryffindor on it. And it's like, oh, that's cool. Didn't see that coming.
I know. It's so amazing.
Neat.
Yeah. So only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of the hat.
Now, but so the thing is, Dumbledore seems like, I feel like Dumbledore must have pulled the sword out of it at some point himself. Because like he hasn't really examined the sword yet. Like Harry like brought it in, just put it on the desk, and Dumbledore to Dumbledore this must be like he doesn't like sit there and like study it for a while,
I know. Now my brain's like whirring a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like what would have happened? Because we have long had the theory that obviously Dumbledore intended to make the final horcrux out of another artifact from one of the other founders. The only artifact that we know that comes from Gryffindor house is the sword, and that the sword would present itself to a Gryffindor in need. Happens to be the case that like 90% of the members of the original Order of the Phoenix are Gryffindors, and specifically I think it's Fabian and Gideon Pruitt, who'd be Molly's brothers. Like they die fighting like just weeks before the death of the Potters, and there's always the big question about like why does it take Voldemort so long to finally like go attack after learning of
where they live
under the Fidelius charm, which we know happens based on Sirius's letter to Lily's letter to Sirius. Yeah. Anyway, whole bunch of stuff going on there. But the thought there is almost that Fabian and Gideon were being attacked in such a way that would provide the opportunity for one of them to pull the sword of Gryffindor or for it to present itself.
Right.
So that then the Death Eaters could procure it for Voldemort, who would then use it to go and make the final horcrux or whatever.
Right, because Dumbledore later tells Harry, and I think he's sort of wrong about it, but he tells Harry that he is positive Voldemort planned on using Harry's death to make the final horcrux.
Yeah.
Which then leads you to the question, well, then he must have had the horcrux on him when he attacked, right? So what was it? What was going to become the final horcrux?
Right.
And our answer has always been the sword. And you're like, well, then why wasn't the sword in the wreckage? And because obviously the sword can disappear.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So it really all adds up very nicely. And the sword is the only known relic other than the sorting hat of Godric Gryffindor. And we even know from Scrimgeour that like legend says how it behaves. So it's like Voldemort could even know about the sword.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't seem unreasonable for anybody who's spent time with wizard history to have discovered this tidbit about the sword.
And if you're thinking though, that's how Dumbledore knows that it's Godric Gryffindor's sword ahead of time. That he could know at a glance that is true. Like, even if he'd only heard the legend and he saw the sword come up, he could be like, oh, I wonder if Harry activated that old legend or something.
Right.
But he still wouldn't know the words were written on it then if he hadn't seen it in person before.
That's a good point. But so, yeah, my thought was going to be like, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me to think that the sword is busy throughout history. Like, there are certainly plenty of Gryffindors. I mean, especially like a house known for its bravery and, valiance and chivalry and stuff like that. Like, for there to be instances where a Gryffindor will have found themselves in need of arming, in need of defense, and therefore it could arrive to him. So anyway, my head started worrying a little bit on the possibility of like Dumbledore versus the Elder Wand of Gellert Grindelwald in the duel of 1945. It doesn't seem like totally unheard of that there'd be like unusual magic afoot.
I know.
Inside of that.
And it's like there's this question of like, do you 100% need the sorting hat in order to like get it to appear to you?
I don't know. I still love the sword in hat.
The sword in it. I know. It's like, but like, when Snape gives it to Harry in the woods, like Harry just stumbles upon the sword and it's like taken under conditions of valor.
You're right. Like it almost makes you wonder, like the fact that Dumbledore gives that prompting to Snape. It's almost like what would have happened if Dumbledore or if Snape had just like left it like leaned against the tree or something.
Right.
It's like, would it have not worked? Would it have disappeared? Like, would something have?
Yeah, I don't know.
Happened?
Yeah, especially with Harry specifically, who is the one who pulled it out of the hat to begin with.
Yeah, so Harry is its last. I mean,
Dumbledore uses it on the ring.
Dumbledore uses it on the ring.
But even that suggests he's used it before. Because when Ron goes to destroy the locket, Harry is like, I think it has to be you. You're the one who got the sword. So it's like the sword is presently working for Ron. Or like, And so it's like, it feels like this, like, why would Dumbledore be able to successfully use the Sword of Gryffindor to destroy the ring if he hadn't at least...
Here's a thought.
Pulled it before.
Here's a thought. Do we know where Dumbledore destroys the ring?
Oh, it's in his office.
It's in his office.
Yes.
Okay.
Because Phineas Nigellus sees him do it.
You're right. The last time I saw that sword was when Dumbledore used it to break open a ring.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, what I think could have been really interesting in that capacity would be a scenario where if Dumbledore went to the Gaunt house, found the ring, realized it was the Resurrection Stone, put it on, and was dying. And like the sword appeared to Dumbledore from his office to the Gaunt Shack.
Possible.
But then couldn't witness it would be the issue. But anyway, the point is that I was going to say is that it wouldn't be unreasonable to me to think that Dumbledore himself, before he could use it to destroy the ring, would need a situation where the sword has presented itself.
Here's the thing. He could have found it in the Gaunt house. Does he put the ring on in the Gaunt house?
Does he put the ring on in the Gaunt? We don't know if he does.
Okay, because he could have gotten the ring, taken it to his office, and then put it on.
Yes.
And then, the sword's already in his office, but he could have immediately he could put it back out of that.
Right. Like not terribly far presenting needed to be had there. The only other thing that I think could be kind of interesting is that the summer before he finds the ring is when he's dueling with Voldemort in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah.
Where... notably, and not in the movies, but in the books, Voldemort uses like a shield with like an S on it, and like a shield versus a sword feel very like battle-y.
It does.
So like it would almost be like the type of thing where it's like, is there a world like where somebody somewhere like in Dumbledore's cloak, like the sword did appear and it's like it was like there's a world where this could be like a proper duel.
right.
Sword versus shield.
That would be hilarious. If you're Dumbledore, like, just carry that hat around with you, man.
I know. You keep that thing on you at all times, just in case.
Just in case. Shring.
Yeah.
I think he must have pulled the sword at some point in history.
Yeah.
And that's why he's able to use it to destroy the ring.
Oh, I definitely think so.
Yeah. And how he knows ahead of time without looking at the sword that it's the Sword of Gryffindor and it has his name on it.
Right.
Yeah. Which then I guess also would mean that Harry could have used the sword to destroy the locket, but it's obviously still more like fitting for Ron to do it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I like this explanation. All right, I think Dumbledore has definitely pulled the sword. The question is, when? It feels like an answer maybe we would have gotten in Fantastic Beasts that would have been very awesome and visually cool on screen, and that we'll never see. Yeah.
Deep sigh. Okay.
Deep sigh. Then Dumbledore laments needing to hire another Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, saying, "Dear me, we do seem to run through them, don't we?" And it's like, yeah, apparently at this point, like 40 of them or something.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not like a new problem that they're running into, and that's another one where like maybe Dumbledore is trying to like not fully explain the cursed position so much, but
right?
Like it's like, oh dear, yes, indeed, we're gonna have to find a new one. But yeah, it's like Dumbledore. You haven't had the same teacher teach this subject for 30 years,
right?
So it's like even that like has got to be like a running gag amongst the students, where it's just sort of like you have Snape teaches you potions from year 1 to year 7, but then
everyone, here.
Defense Against the Dark, like Hogwarts must have terrible pass scores on the
Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Yes, yeah, for like NEWT and OWLs.
Absolutely, they must. Unless for a while, I feel like maybe it feels like the workaround is to have like 2 people just sort of like take turns.
Take turns. That's a good point.
You take it over this year, then I'll do it next year, then you take it back, and then I'll do it, and
like
maybe it's not killing every single person who does it; they just can't hold it.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Something comes up.
Yeah,
but of course, eventually, obviously, things get pretty bad. Let's see, and then Lucius finally shows up.
Yes. So Lucius steps into the room, followed by Dobby. I love the fact that he is like carrying Dobby is carrying like a stained rag, which he was attempting to finish cleaning Mr. Malfoy's shoes, because Malfoy had basically like left the house in such a hurry, being like, "Wait, what's happened?
Yeah.
No, we leave now, Dobby."
Right.
And like he never like let Dobby know that like to stop completing the task. So Dobby is just still trying to complete the task that they were doing.
Right.
That's like a fun it's like clever writing, at least from the perspective of like something was happening that you can imagine before this scene took place.
Yeah.
You can see what he was interrupted from doing and how he ended up in this particular instance. But this is when Harry is learning that Dobby belongs to the Malfoys.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, which is fun because if you remember back when Fred and George and Ron rescue Harry, they're like, I wonder, is there anyone at school who would be trying to play a prank on you or who hates you? And they're like, Malfoy. And it's because they're trying to figure out who Dobby might belong to. And like, sure enough, it is the Malfoys.
It is the Malfoys, but
it's not a joke.
He has a completely different intention than what the Malfoys had, though.
Yeah.
Which is to protect Harry, which is like one of those things where it's like probably when you're thinking about like, well, who'd be trying to protect Harry? It's like probably the last people you would think of would be the Malfoys.
Right. Yeah. Indeed. Of course, I mean, Dobby describes his owners as being pretty terrible the entire time. So maybe it's obvious that it's Malfoy. Maybe the reason that they guess Malfoy is so you don't think it's Malfoy.
Maybe so.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
so,
like it's definitely not going to be who they guessed. First of all,
right. We can go ahead. We can rule that out.
Yep. But so let's see. Dumbledore. I love how pleasant he's being. Just good evening, Lucius, said Dumbledore pleasantly, and Lucius is clearly all flustered and upset. And then let's see, he tells them about how the other 11 governors contacted me today. It was something like being caught in a hailstorm of owls, to tell the truth. They'd heard tell that Arthur Weasley's daughter had been killed and wanted to see me back here at once. They seemed to think I was the best man for the job after all. Then just that he'd threatened to curse their families if they didn't agree to suspend me in the first place. But he phrases it like, very strange tales. Like, it was, you wouldn't believe what they were saying. Clearly they weren't true.
Right, yes, no, I know. I love that phrase. Like, it's so non-accusatory to say, several of them seem to think that you had threatened to curse their families if they didn't agree to send me in the first place.
Seemed to think.
Yeah. It's like oh man. Yeah, but it's a good way for Dumbledore to just to be like, like he could make a big deal. Like, I mean, you could make a stand on that thing. It's like, Lucius, what are you doing, man? Like, stop.
Yeah, it's like a very veiled threat.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it's like they seem to think you are willing to do this, but of course you and I know you'd never do something like that. Wink.
Right. It's like we all know who's the more powerful wizard in this room.
Right.
And it's not you.
And it's not you. Not even a little bit. Let's see. Oh, there's a good line here. Of it, a clever plan, said Dumbledore in a level voice, still staring at Mr. Malfoy, because if Harry here and his friend Ron hadn't discovered the book, Ginny Weasley might not have taken all the blame. No one would ever be able to tell or prove she hadn't acted of her own free will. Mr. Malfoy said nothing. His face was suddenly mask-like. And I just like the phrasing of mask-like because it feels like some Death Eater foreshadowing.
It totally is. 'Cause
Yeah.
the Death Eaters wear masks.
Yeah.
You're right. And this is such a Death Eater moment.
It really is. It's just
Yeah.
like, well, you were caught planting dark magical objects.
Right.
Yep.
But then, Dumbledore sort of goes on to keep doing exactly what we've been talking about. Like, imagine what would have happened then. The Weasleys are one of our most prominent pureblood families. Imagine the effect on Arthur Weasley and his Muggle Protection Act if his own daughter was discovered attacking Muggleborns. It's like Dumbledore's basically being like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And I know
I know
exactly
what you're up to, bro.
Yeah, from start to finish. I know why it was Ginny. I know who planted it. Like,
I know
everything about your plan, and it was dumb.
And it was dumb. He's even just sort of like, he's even like trapping him in the argument. He's like, I know. It's like one of our most prominent pureblood families, something you care about, Lucius.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
And it's like, yeah.
Just
like,
using his own argument against him.
It's exactly it. Yeah, it's just like, using the blood trader argument or whatever.
Yep.
And then Harry just straight up, like, Dumbledore's doing a great job of being very, like, veiled about it. And Harry is very blunt. He's like, you gave her the diary, didn't you? He's like, prove it. And I love Dumbledore's response. He says, oh, no one will be able to do that, of course. It's just like...
I love that Dumbledore. Really, I feel like what's happening in this situation, which makes it so great, is that Dumbledore is just like, Lucius, you're not a threat.
Yeah.
You're not my concern. If you were my concern, I could end you in a heartbeat.
Right.
Because clearly I know everything that you're doing. You're not my problem.
Right. You
Like,
think you're being so sly, and I got your number, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's so great because it's like the best way to take down a bully like Lucius.
Yeah.
Is to just like basically dismantle what they think is their strength.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So later, he says, if any more of them, he says, he of course says like, oh, we can't know it was you, but then he does tell him, I would advise you not to go giving out of any more Lord Voldemort's old school things. It was like, no one can prove it was you, but if you do it again. I love that.
Yeah, but then look where Dumbledore's like, I think Arthur Weasley for one will make sure that they are traced back to you. This is like one of those things where it's like you are not even big enough to register as my Albus Dumbledore's problem. But if you are on somebody on your own level, like Arthur Weasley, he'll get you.
Oh,
like
I literally just crossed out Arthur Weasley and wrote I. If any more of a thing, I think Arthur Weasley, I for one, will make sure they are traced back to you.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, or that.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that he's throwing Arthur Weasley like some serious like support right now. Like,
yes.
It's like as much as you want to look down on Arthur Weasley, that man can run laps around you, magically speaking.
Yes. So let's see. They finally Malfoy leaves and has Dobby come with him, and Harry asks if he can give the diary back to Mr. Malfoy. And I love this. This is such a random line from Dumbledore. He says, certainly, Harry, but hurry, the feast, remember. It's like, oh yeah, the feast that goes on to last all night.
Right,
it's like,
right.
yeah, make sure you give that back quick because it might be over in like a couple minutes.
Surely the kitchens have been alerted.
Yeah.
Everybody has made it down to the Great Hall.
Pretty much over.
I bet almost all the food is gone. Why are you still here in the first place?
I know, right? Yeah, I just think that's a funny line.
It is almost surprising to me, though, that Dumbledore in this moment, without any more information, is so willing to let Harry take such an important artifact and give it back to Lucius.
Oh,
Malfoy.
I know. I'm like, if I'm Dumbledore, I'm like, I would maybe like to continue examining that diary just a smidge.
Which apparently he does end up doing anyway, because Dumbledore ends up back in possession with it.
Oh, does he?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he has it and shows it to Harry when he's explaining the horcruxes.
I think you're right. Or he does in the movie, at least, right?
He does in the movie. I know in the
Yeah.
movie he does because he slides the ring across the table with the corner of the diary because he doesn't want to touch the ring again.
Yeah, I'm
Very
sure.
understandably. I do love the fact that Harry's socks are just so absolutely disgusting.
I know.
The slimy, filthy sock.
Yeah.
And stuffed it into the diary. And this is like one of those things.
No, stuff the diary into it.
Stuff the diary. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Literally every single occasion on like 50 reads of this book, I have read it the other way.
Oh, yeah.
So
he
he
puts the diary inside the sock and then hands that to Mr. Malfoy.
Oh my God. How big is the sock? Or
I
how
know.
small is
That's
this
what I'm like.
diary?
How big are your feet, Harry?
If Hogwarts had a swim team.
I know.
Woo!
He does swim some laps in that prefect pool.
He does.
Or
he
bathtub,
does.
I guess.
Yeah. Oh man,
Yeah.
that is so funny. Okay,
Yep.
that I could see now where Malfoy would be like,
Hey, gross.
yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Force the smelly sock into Lucius Malfoy's hand. What the? Is how Jim Dale reads it. Mr. Malfoy ripped the sock off the diary and threw it aside and looked furiously from the ruined book to Harry.
Yep. And then let's see. Well, let's. Blah, blah, blah. He said, Dobby looks up and he says, "Master has given a sock. Master gave it to Dobby." And it's like, this is a very loose definition of gave him a sock.
No, I love it though. I love it. This to me is like the thing where it's like house elves don't do laundry. It's like because the rules are that strict.
It goes, yeah,
It's
or
like-
that loose.
That loose. Yeah. But no, it's amazing. And then I love that. The way that Dobby follows it up, like Master has given him a sock, and then Mr. Malfoy says, "What's that? What did you say? Got a sock?
Got a sock."
It's like it's so adorable. It's so sweet. I just love Dobby so much.
Threw it and Dobby got it. Dobby is free.
To which I added a whole bunch of exclamation
I
points.
know. I
after
said,
that.
"Yay,
Yay!"
So good. And then just immediately, Dobby's like full power is like unleashed, and he's like, "All right, don't have to hold it back anymore. See ya."
I know. No, this is like one of the things that I love about house elves is that they are so powerful. It's like Lucius basically does not stand a chance. Like it even says, like, "You shall not touch Harry Potter. You shall go now." Lucius Malfoy had no choice.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean he had no choice? Like Lucius is a fully trained adult wizard, former Death Eater. Like it seems like he should have a choice.
Seems like he should be able to take the elf.
But instead, no. It's like, no, that's it. I think there's no trying to face down.
But like it's so revealing too, because it's like how Lucius treats Dobby is like such a massive weakness that like Voldemort falls prey to as well. But like it is like it's so clear that Lucius genuinely believes like in his absolute superiority over like non-purebloods, and just doesn't like, he's not just like putting on this front as like, oh, I like for like, he's not adopting that stance as a way to like gain himself power. Like he genuinely believes it, because like even just minor precautions could have stopped Dobby from learning as much as he did and like tipping Harry off at all. You know, like Dobby knows like Voldemort's identity as Tom Riddle.
Oh yeah,
you know,
right.
Nope. Like that's how much Lucius doesn't see Dobby as a threat.
Right.
Like despite the fact that he has this magic, and it's like their inability to recognize the house elves as a threat, and their like ironclad belief that they are like completely worthless creatures that just exist to serve them, like upends them so hard.
It does.
Over and over and over.
Yes, and they are clearly so OP and so powerful, and like, yeah. So you're right. But like, this is the problem with that level of like arrogance. But it's also one of those things that makes it just like joyous that it keeps biting them in the butt.
Oh, yes, it's great.
It's like, okay, if you're
Yep.
not going to learn, we're just it'll keep working.
Yeah. Also, man, it sounds like he falls down quite a lot of stairs. He crashed down the stairs 3 at a time, landing in a crumbled heap. Like, man.
I know. Yeah, falling downstairs, mighty painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really hurts, especially
Yes.
when I can only imagine our stone stairs.
Yeah, I know, right? The castle not exactly known for being made of anything but stone.
Yes, precisely. Or dragon.
Or dragon, right? Those are dragon scale stairs.
Hogwarts is a dragon.
Hogwarts is a dragon.
Or at
yes.
least it used to be.
Used to be, right? You know. Could be again someday, maybe.
Right.
Just like the Anglia is a Thestral and the Night Bus is a Zowu.
There we go. We got so
All
many,
these giant things. They're just animals.
So many creatures, formerly animals.
Formerly animals.
Yeah, or so many objects, formerly animals.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love the way that Dobby. So they're kind of having this exchange here, where like most of Harry's conversations with Dobby have been so cryptic that I think Harry is quite frustrated inside of most of them. But then Harry is sort of like, wait, but you told me all this had nothing to do with he who must not be named. Remember, it was a clue, sir.
Yeah. What's giving you a clue? The Dark Lord before he changed his name could be freely named, you see.
It's
Such a bad clue. Why that's in the book is so that the whole book you're not just like, well, it's obviously Voldemort.
yes. In which
Right,
case,
yeah.
but for the most part, it's pretty obviously Voldemort anyway.
Yeah, right. It's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's like, if that line wasn't in there, how much more obvious is it to you, the reader, that it's Voldemort?
Possibly so.
Yeah.
Possibly so. Although, I mean, even that is difficult, because it's like, I do remember at this stage in the series, like, you don't know how immortal he is. So it's like, you don't know like whether or not Harry's just going to face different villains at the end of each installment.
Right, yeah.
In the
This is
series.
only
Like,
the second book. It's like Voldemort could easily have just been like, oh, yeah, he's the one who killed your parents, and then you faced him in Philosopher's Stone and sort of finished him off.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. So it's like, just like with the Avengers, it's like they're not fighting the same villain every time. They're always fighting different villains. It's
Right.
like, Harry's going to fight different villains. And maybe like Voldemort will come back as the big bad eventually because he's the one who killed Harry's parents, but like who knows who this Tom Riddle guy could be.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But so anyway, then the other thing that's happening during all the rest of this is amazing timing, but Hermione and the rest of the victims of the basilisk attacks are also being awakened and should be at the feast, which Harry is going to head off to. Dobby gives him a really big hug, which I just found to be absolutely adorable.
Yay.
And I love their like ongoing rapport with each other as time goes on.
I know.
So
So good. So good. Love
Dobsters.
Dobbers. Feels like, well, I was going to say maybe like if Harry can't do magic, he could still just summon Dobby and have him do magic around the house. But like clearly he can't do that because that'll still pick up on the trace. So,
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that much.
we know that much. That's exactly what he fell into this year.
Yep.
Yep.
So they go down to the Great Feast, where does it say in this next sentence that Gryffindor will be securing the House Cup for the second year in the running? Professor McGonagall stands up to tell them all that as a treat, the exams had been canceled, which actually is kind of surprising. Like there are certainly some dangerous things that seem to happen inside of the school years to ahead.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they always cancel exams.
I guess not. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd think maybe they'd be canceled for like the people who were petrified.
Definitely for those people.
Yeah. Some of whom have been petrified for like months.
Yeah, it's been
Months.
like a while.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. When is it? Was it Valentine's Day? So this is we're like in June at this point.
Yeah.
So it's months.
Long time, just sitting there. Basically missed a whole year of school. Fortunately for Hermione, she just read the whole curriculum anyway.
Yeah, over the summer.
No
So
problem.
She's fine. She's not missing any beats.
Yep. Let's see. All the rest of the Defense Against the Dark Arts classes were canceled, and I love Ron saying like, "We've had plenty of practice at that anyway," which is like that's actually sort of like a nice realization by Ron because like later on, like even Harry doesn't like when they're forming the DA meeting, like. Everyone's asking Harry all these questions about like, oh, did you kill a basilisk with that sword, or did you fend off Voldemort in the graveyard, or did you do this, did that? And he's just like, well, yeah, but I was just like, I was just handling the situation, and like everyone keeps trying to tell Harry like, that's Defense Against the Dark Arts, you're good at it. And he's like, no, I was just acting in the moment. He's like, yeah, no, that's it.
I was just defending myself from the dark arts. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
whatever. It's just like and like he eventually kind of realized it. But like Ron, even as a 12-year-old, is like, we did it. Like we did a thing.
I know. Yeah, like we are actively defending against the
dark arts.
No,
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it is one of those things. Like I am like a little bit glad about because I could really see an easy world or temptation inside of writing a story like this to sort of like. Harry is good at it without ever like actively relying on the knowledge that he is good at it in order to like solve problems.
Yeah.
Because if it was sort of like he was the best in his year at Defense Against the Dark Arts, he could totally handle this. It might just make it like that much more plausible for him to go and like face any danger at any point in time and just be like, Harry, ever good at this, wins. And it's like, oh yeah,
right.
Okay. Like it would be so easy, like writing shortcuts to just be like, yeah, Harry's extremely good at Defense Against the Dark Arts. So basically, put him in any situation, he's gonna be fine.
Right.
It's like the doubt that I think like kind of like looms inside of Harry all the time makes it so that like whenever he is standing up to bravery, it's always like he is having to be brave.
Yeah.
Because bravery is not the absence of fear. It's
Right.
the ability to face your fear.
Exactly. This is why the Patronus thing that's so like good is like Harry doesn't necessarily think he can do a Patronus or anything like when he fights off the Dementors, like he's trying to do it and he can't, and then he looks across the lake and he sees the Patronus coming, and then when he's in the position he realizes, oh wait, it was me the first time,
right?
And suddenly he can do it. But it's like he doesn't like at first he's not acting because he doesn't think he can do it. And it's like
right.
He has this like weird, he like falls backwards into the confidence that he can do it because
right.
Harry is like not naturally arrogant enough to like let himself do it.
I know,
Yeah.
which is so crazy, but I love that about Harry too. too.
Yes.
It's very admirable.
I know. Yep. Very good. I also like the little where they're all practicing Expelliarmus each other on the train, and it's like Harry was getting very good at it, and it's like, yeah, he's pretty good at that one.
Yeah, I mean, Expelliarmus is really like, I mean, other than the Patronus that you just mentioned, I mean, that is a signature spell. That's the one that like will take down Voldemort in the end. It is, like, which again is like one of those things I think for the longest time as a kid reading the books, it frustrated me because I was like, man, like, why is it Expelliarmus in the end?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like a disarming spell. I was like, why can't you do something like really cool?
Something
like,
cooler, man.
You know, like explode.
That's right. Why doesn't he blow him up? Come on.
But no, it's like Expelliarmus. But no, then it's like as I get older, the more I'm like, okay, no, the idea of like focusing on disarming something that is dangerous rather than being on the offensive attack or even worse, attempting to kill. It's like, okay, no, that is part of like
that's the messaging.
That's the messaging.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah, right. Harry doesn't blow him up because if he did, he wouldn't be Harry.
He wouldn't be Harry, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and they finally get next they finally get the secret out of Ginny that Percy's got a girlfriend, and Fred and George are just like, what? Christmas came early. Oh my gosh. Guess what? We're gonna make fun of him all the time for that for some reason.
Yep. I know. Yeah, I do love their reaction, or even Ginny's like naivete here, saying, "You won't tease him, will you?" She added anxiously. Wouldn't dream of it.
Wouldn't dream of it. Definitely not,
said George, sniggering.
Yeah.
I did write. I love Fred and George here.
Oh, I know. Same.
The other thing about Percy's girlfriend is that this is coming. Like this information is on, at least in our copies of the book, it is on the last page.
Yeah.
Which is almost one of those things where it almost feels like for most of the writing process, like Percy is this big red herring. Like he's behaving in these strange ways. He's been locked up in his room all summer. He keeps being found near or around the scene of the crime. He's locking himself in rooms. Like he's telling Ginny not to share information. And it's like almost one of these things where it's like you get to like the last page of like writing and you're sort of like, crap, Percy. I gotta solve Percy. Percy has a girlfriend, you know, which I mean, clearly I think was thought out from the very beginning.
Yes, clearly, yeah.
You know, it's like once you know, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But it is funny to me that it's like that loose end doesn't get tied up until literally like.
Yes. Let's see how many paragraphs from the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7 paragraphs from the end.
Yes. Some of which those paragraphs are quite small.
Or just like lines of dialogue in here.
Yes, yeah.
But also, Ginny says she walked in on them kissing, which I obviously cross that out and replace it with snogging.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. The much more comfortable
The much more comfortable word that wizards use to talk about kissing.
Is snogging a British word? I think it
absolutely, it almost must be. Although it's possible because like going forward, snogging will be the word. So it's possible that like snogging means more like making out.
Okay.
And and Percy and Penelope are like not making out. They're just like kissing.
I don't want to think about it.
I know. This is a weird conversation.
It's so uncomfy. But yeah, no, I think snogging is the word. I've watched enough British TV to where I think I've seen that come up.
It must be. It's one of those things like to Americans it just sounds like a gross word.
It's too close to snot.
It's too close to snot. Exactly. It feels like you were kissing and then you pulled away and now there's snot between you is what happened. That's the word snogging. Yeah. That's what it makes me think of. And if you're like a British person, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
I doubt that's what people are thinking.
I doubt. They're just
they're like,
no.
Stop hating on our word.
Stop hating on our word.
You're just jealous.
You just, yeah.
you wish you thought of it first.
I super don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe just anyway. Obviously, Ginny used the wrong word. Is what I'm saying.
She does indeed. Yep. Mm-hmm. Basically, I mean, we're arriving back at King's Cross Station. Harry is asking Ron to try to give him a phone call over the summer because he can't last 2 months without being able to talk to anybody other than Dudley. Hermione, poor sweet thing, says, your aunt and uncle will be proud of you, though, won't they? Once they hear what you've done? And Harry's like, proud? Are you crazy? All those times I could have died and I didn't manage? They'll be furious.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
There you go.
But then I even do love the last sentence because it literally almost to me it feels like what we, the reader, are experiencing as well. Especially if you're to imagine this in a world where Prisoner of Azkaban is like another 2 years from being released or a year from being released, however long it is into the future. Because it's like you get to this point and it says, and together they walked back through the gateway to the Muggle world. Mm-hmm. And then you close your book.
Right.
And it's like,
and now, your journey is over too.
Yeah, it's like, it's over. It's over until the next one.
Right.
And it's not even out right now. I have to wait.
I have to wait. Actually, if you have this copy of the book, the next chapter is right there.
It is right there. Yeah. You can pick
go.
right back up with chapter 1.
Chapter
Owl
one.
Post.
Owl Post. But
for Prisoner of Azkaban.
I feel like I remember, maybe it was before Goblet of Fire, they released the first chapter in like a magazine or something.
Did they?
And you could like buy the magazine and read the first chapter, which is the Riddle House one where it's just like Frank Bryce.
I remember listening to Goblet of Fire chapter 1 for the first time, being like, "Wow, this one's a lot different from the others."
Yeah,
like thinking like this is like a very
really takes a big turn.
It does. I mean, you have a perspective that's not Harry's.
Yeah, I know, right? Very unusual.
Well, I guess technically it's Harry's, but we don't know that yet.
That's true.
But yeah.
You know, well, we haven't seen this since Vernon's chapter in chapter 1.
Chapter 1 of Sorcerer's
Stone. Yeah.
Well, there we go. So Chamber of Secrets is complete. What a journey it was on. I mean, it's been remarkable to me because as we've said so many times, and I'm sure many of the readers who are listening at home as well, it's like I've read these books so many times, and you have as well, and we've talked about them relentlessly. We've made, I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me if we've made 1,000 videos covering the series.
Oh, I mean, we've made a lot.
Yeah.
We've talked about Harry Potter a lot.
We have. And it's like we're still finding and like turning over things for the very first time.
That's what's crazy. It's like, for as much as we've like read it and dissected it, it's like doing it in this like podcast fashion. It's like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Like there are still like new stones to continue to like discover, like 25 years into the wizarding world.
I know, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's just fun to get lost inside of it, and we appreciate everybody who's joining us for this particular journey.
We sure do. Would you like to hear a review?
I would love to.
All right, this comes from the THSD Bob. This is DeBob. This is DeBob.
This is DeBob.
This is DeBob.
This is DeBob.
Yeah, it says, actually, you know what? And then it also lists the username as Phantom Bob.
Okay.
I don't know. Phantom Bob, what's up, dude? Hey, brothers, got to say I love your podcast. Listen to it when I'm delivering mail and love to listen to your theories and watch your videos when I'm at home. Hogwarts was definitely a dragon. You're right about that, Phantom Bob.
Yes.
Yes.
Phantom Bob gets it.
Phantom Bob does get it. Hogwarts is a dragon. I have a question. If the diary Horcrux had brought in a second Tom Riddle... If the diary Horcrux had brought in a second Tom Riddle and wasn't stopped, do you think it would have tried to make more Horcruxes since it was the first or second one made? Especially if he knew that he wanted to make a total of 7.
Okay, so now we have 2 Voldemorts out there in the world.
Right.
We have one whose belief would or knowledge base would only go up until age 16,
except for what he's learned from Ginny so far.
Except for what he's learned from Ginny, which is that like Harry would be his nemesis. Would that Voldemort, who last at that age was intending to make 7 Horcruxes, go out and make more with the knowledge that he is himself basically born of a singular fragment?
Well, based on that information alone, if he knows that he's a Horcrux and that he survived, then definitionally Voldemort Prime exists
as well.
Like he couldn't have died because the diary worked.
The real question in my mind would be whether or not you would end up having a battle between young Tom Riddle and Voldemort Prime, as we always call him, because I could see a world where they would both recognize that they were such massive threats to each other.
I can totally see that as well. I can see young Tom Riddle thinking that like this defeated version of him is not as good.
Yes,
and and honestly, it would almost be a way for him to like get his good looks back.
It would be.
He could almost like resurface again.
So do you think that all of the other Horcruxes, and I don't see any reason why not, would also work for both Tom Riddles, and you've almost got like a Hydra situation going on where it's like cut one head off and another one appears? Like would you have 2 Voldemorts actively existing at the same time that would be equally difficult to kill? Because if that was the case and they realized it, Voldemorts would not attack one another because they would know that they would both be anchored by each other's Horcruxes.
I suspect, I don't think they would kill each other because Voldemort considers himself like the most special thing in the world.
Okay.
So like I don't think he would destroy his own soul. I suspect Tom Riddle from the Chamber of Secrets would try and seek out Voldemort Prime to try and learn as much information about everything that's happened
Definitely.
Like he wants information first. And I suspect like it's a very like they just sort of reform together kind of thing.
Oh, you think they could like
merge like what Quirrell does or something?
Possibly, but I mean, it's to have two Horcruxes come back together.
You have to feel remorse.
So
yeah, is that even possible? I mean, if Voldemort could feel remorse for anyone, it might be himself.
That's a fair point. This would be a very, very unique exception because basically what Dumbledore says is like he doesn't love anybody. He doesn't have friends.
Right.
But him having a conversation with him is very different from him having a conversation with anybody else. And I could see a world where young Tom Riddle, especially if there are rumors that Dumbledore is aware of, knows that Voldemort's hiding in the forest of Albania. It doesn't seem hard for me to imagine a world where this Tom Riddle could just get to Voldemort in the same way that Peter Pettigrew does and just be an even better ally towards himself than Peter ever was.
Or I could see if he's the one that like has a body and is walking around, he finds Voldemort Prime, gets all the information he can out of himself, and then makes Voldemort Prime like into a Horcrux.
Oh.
You know, because that's effectively just like the last piece of soul.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So then it's like placing that piece of soul into some kind of container.
Right. But okay, so that's interesting because if he did that, just theoretically, then he's still not Voldemort Prime.
Correct.
Right? So if then, like, you know, if then that piece of Voldemort's soul, you know, that walking version of Tom Riddle gets, you know, stabbed with the basilisk fang and it successfully kills him, like, then he just dies and that piece of soul is destroyed. Like, that part of him wouldn't turn into, like, Mist Voldemort.
Correct.
Because Mist Voldemort would then be, like, trapped in its own Horcrux.
So
he'd still be alive, just sort of like in waiting.
He would be stuck.
He'd be stuck.
Yeah.
But like, oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. Then somebody would have, like, you know, so if you could imagine like Slytherin's locket, it would almost be like somebody would have to be able to like open Slytherin's locket.
You got a real Jumanji situation going on all of a sudden.
A little bit, yeah.
Just like then you can really send Voldemort into the future and someone like discovers him and it's like, oh, uh-oh.
No. Yeah. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
That is a real Jumanji situation.
Yeah.
That's a good comparison.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So that being said, I don't know that he would need to. I think he would try to find himself. I think he would learn how many Horcruxes he already made. I think those Horcruxes would apply to both of them. And I think you'd have an incredibly dangerous situation on your hands.
Yeah.
With two Voldemorts, especially if they didn't want to kill each other, which I don't think they would do because they would value each other, and two, because they would be aware of the fact that each other's Horcruxes are anchoring each of them just as much as they're anchoring themselves.
Right.
So it's like, by defeating young Tom Riddle, handsome Tom Riddle, or whatever, if you're Voldemort Prime, it's just like that one is going to be anchored by the Hufflepuff's cup and Slytherin's locket and the diadem of Ravenclaw.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Do you think the Tom Riddle Horcrux? I don't think he'd be anchored.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it would come down to whether or not Voldemort Prime would want to kill Tom Riddle, Diary Tom Riddle.
Right.
That's the only way it could go, though.
But probably not. He probably just like wants him to be like an agent, because then effectively Tom Riddle Voldemort is the same as like Nagini Voldemort.
Yeah, it can be in two places at once.
Two places at once. He's more like an agent of Voldemort Prime.
Ooh.
Ugh, weird.
That's not good.
Not good.
Yeah. Okay. Great question, though.
Yes.
Great question, Bob. Thank you so much for writing in. As ever, if you two have any thoughts about the show or would like to ask us a question, we do have the Q&A episode coming up here in a couple of weeks, which we highly encourage you to go into the show notes, so the links down below, and send us any of your questions. We're going to have a fun Q&A episode, which I really do think will be crazy action-packed. Like, it is amazing the thoughts and ideas of the members of this community come up with. So I think that's going to be a really, really fun and insightful episode that will probably like push our brains, similar to the end of each episode where we do one of these reviews and it's like, how would that work? Let's go through the motions. How does it come together?
Yeah.
So want to hear your thoughts there. Also, it always helps the podcast a lot if you're able to leave a review for us somewhere. Kind of helps with the discoverability as the show sort of goes out into the ether and we continue to grow that community, which is always super great. And as ever, if we can get that YouTube subscription up to 100,000, we can totally get the
get that silver play button, y'all.
Silver play button from YouTube.
We can do it. We can do it.
It would be so much fun. So, be sure if you're listening somewhere and you're having a wild hair and you feel like opening up the YouTube app and just go to the Through the Gryffindor YouTube page and click that little button for us. We would just so appreciate it.
We really would. But otherwise, that is going to be a wrap on Chamber of Secrets. We will be picking up with Prisoner of Azkaban from Boston on tour in 3 weeks?
In 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks. We will still have weekly episodes for you in the meantime, but we cannot wait to see you guys in person through the Griffin door.
Today's episode was edited by Ethan Edghill. Vaishon Brandon does our art. Catherine Stein is our production manager, and the show is hosted by me and Jonathan Carlin.